I have been working with leaders for a long time. I ran my own company for many years, successfully until one day it wasn't successfully. And I've shared my story about this. 15 years ago, I lost everything. And it required me to really shift my industry, shift my entire makeup, and I became a coach. And so I share that with you because I want you to have some context around this. I've been in business before. I ran a fast growth company. And when I now help other leaders, I have done this not from theory, but from experience. And I know what works and what doesn't work. And I know what the common hurdles are or issues and challenges that have to be addressed. The biggest one is time/energy. And I put those together because a lot of people say that they don't have time to be a leader because they're so busy doing the work. And that's a big problem, because if you're doing the work, then you've got to get out of your own way, empower your people, give them the support they need, give them the coaching they need. And those aren't skills that are natural to most founders.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today, let's talk about how do you get to be better at leading others. Being a better leader is not about doing more. In fact, most of the time I see it's about subtracting things from your day-to-day and getting rid of the things that are getting in the way of you leading people. We're going to unpack that in today's episode. My name is Gene Hammett. I'm a CEO coach. I've been doing this since 2012, full-time, helping CEOs grow to that next level, helping them scale their businesses, helping them create the right leadership strategies, and all of those things related to taming the chaos inside a business. When you think about your own business, when you add more people, it doesn't make it easier. It makes it very necessary for you to actually be a better leader. And so today we're going to talk about that in detail. But before we get into that, if there's something that you're facing right now and you want to make sure you have executive team alignment, you want to make sure you are prepared for the next big opportunity, then you want to make sure that we get together, have a little bit of a discovery call to really dive into it. I will help you identify what gets in the way. Sometimes those are blind spots. I call them leadership blind spots. And you want to know what they are so that you can address them. And so all of that is something I do for free. If you're listening to this podcast, all you have to do is send me an email, gene@genehammett.com, and you can get that discovery session with me absolutely for free. If you're curious about what that is, go to genehammett.com and check out some of the resources we have there. Some of those things are absolutely free, or actually most of them are free. Very few things actually cost money. But if you want my personal time, it's going to require an investment. But in this case, you can get it absolutely free. So if you want that discovery call, just send me an email, gene@genehammett.com, and say you heard it on the podcast, and you won't be charged. So let's dive into becoming a better leader. Now, I could go in many different directions on this, and this is not meant to be a 14-hour session or a master class, if you will, broken up into all the things. I'm just going to kind of go free form with you for a few minutes, because last week I had an executive team sit down with me doing their yearly retreat, and we were able to address where they're going and look at the leadership in that journey. And so a lot of it came up with, how do we become better leaders? And so let's go into that today in this conversation, or podcast, if you will. I have been working with leaders for a long time. I ran my own company for many years, successfully until one day it wasn't successfully. And I've shared my story about this. 15 years ago, I lost everything. And it required me to really shift my industry, shift my entire makeup, and I became a coach. And so I share that with you because I want you to have some context around this. I've been in business before. I ran a fast growth company. And when I now help other leaders, I have done this not from theory, but from experience. And I know what works and what doesn't work. And I know what the common hurdles are or issues and challenges that have to be addressed. The biggest one is time/energy. And I put those together because a lot of people say that they don't have time to be a leader because they're so busy doing the work. And that's a big problem, because if you're doing the work, then you've got to get out of your own way, empower your people, give them the support they need, give them the coaching they need. And those aren't skills that are natural to most founders. It wasn't natural to me. I went to coach training school to get this. I'm not suggesting you have to go to coach training school, but if you really want to be a great coach, you probably want to go to get some finishing touches and really help those skills and develop them. But time and energy is a big part of being a better leader. One of the things I've shared with you many, many times before, if you've listened to this podcast, is the 5 levels of leadership. And the second level is the transactional leader, and they're focused on the doing. The next level is the strategic leader, which is focused on how we get there and the bigger picture of things. And those are really focused on work. When you get to the next level, your exceptional leadership, I you're really focused most of your time on developing others. So you want to make sure your schedule has more white space than it probably has right now. You want to have time to think. You want to have time to connect the dots across the many different teams and whatnot. And you want to be scanning for, what do we do next as a company to be able to take advantage of those next big opportunities. Maybe I mentioned that earlier that you remember, but you want to make sure you have the time and energy to lead, because if you have an overpacked schedule and something comes up, you won't be able to address it the way you want to. You'll have to rush it. You'll have to you squeeze it in. And I would like to just remind you that leadership isn't just about squeezing things in. You want to be doing regular one-on-one conversations with people, and that is what makes the most difference in being a better leader. So that being said, all of those things will, when you understand the time and energy sucks in your life, and you can, the quick, practical, actionable thing behind this is look at your calendar each week and look at what's taking your energy away, and even jot down where would you rather be spending your time, because as a leader you've got to continuously evolve in how you approach things, and one of those things being your time and energy. I've noticed the biggest thing that gets in the way of a lot of leaders is really just the I've got to go to every meeting, and I've got to keep my finger on the pulse, and I got to do this work. Only I can do it. And I hear it quite often. And it's a leadership blind spot, because they need to really empower their people. And that means stop going to some of the meetings. That means you only go to the things that you really are needed at. And then you empower others, and they give you some type of feedback or some type of update when necessary or on a regular basis is better. So time and energy is one of the big things. Another thing is just thinking that you're the only one that can do things. I put that separately, because if you think that you're the only one that can do things, then you'll probably work yourself into this mindset where this is just who I am. Your identity starts to be identified by that. Now, I've worked with a lot of different leaders that were in different phases, but one of the things that comes up quite often is they'll say that they're the only one that knows how to do something, because that's their zone of genius. And I agree with them every time, because I've seen it. That's the reason why their company is successful. But in order to reach the next level, you've got to be able to let go of who you are today to be able to become that next level leader. And so being a better leader is about identifying whatever those things are. A lot of the skill inside this is about reflection. When you are able to reflect back on what is getting in the way of your leadership. I know it's a big question, but if you're really honest with yourself, you probably can put down in words what is getting in the way of you being the leader you want to be. And for most, it's time, or there's some other kind of excuse. And those are all excuses. And you can find a way forward, or you can find an excuse. Whichever you're looking for, you'll find. And so I just remind you that to be a better leader, you've got to do these things. Now, you may think that I was going to come in here and talk about reading books. I don't think that you should read, 52 books this year to be a better leader. I'd rather you pick 2, 3, or 4 at maximum. And I'd rather you read them over and over and over. Now, I've got a book called How to Have Tough Conversations. That might be one of your books, because you want to make sure that you're addressing people and the feedback, and giving them feedback, and addressing the people problems, proactively. And so that's a good book. But you might be looking at some other books. I'm not going to list them today, but there's some amazing books. But my suggestion is, don't try to go broad with this. Go really deep. Being a better leader is not being, a broad understanding of all these different concepts. It's about going deep and using them and practicing it. And so I leave you with that today, because it really will change the way you lead. When you think about your only job is to grow the company, it's a limiting belief, because I believe your job is to grow the company and to grow the people. Now, you may see those as the same thing, and most people confuse that. They spend 99% of their time growing the company, and they just expect their people to follow along suit, and so they end up pulling them. And I've seen this over and over and over inside my executive coaching. All of this is just to kind of maybe put a spark inside you about what you could do differently and think differently about your own leadership, and to be a little bit more critical about the skills that you don't have, about what's getting in the way, and all of that, when you do it well, will make you a better leader, because you're able to address and move away from things you don't want to do. If you're a micromanager, you write it down. Write down some of the behaviors that are around the things that are getting in your way, and then look at that and say, is that who I really am? My hope is you won't accept that. You will say, I've got to evolve to a new level. As you've probably heard before, Marshall Goldsmith wrote a great book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it's an incredible title because people quote it all the time. I quote it, other people quote it, and it can be used in different ways. The leadership that got you here won't get you to the next level. The people that got you here won't get you to the next level. The culture that got you here won't get you to the next level. It's a constant evolution, especially as you add more people and you scale your company. You're getting more strategic, you're getting more technical, you're getting more innovative, whatever it is. It requires a different level of leadership. Are you up for the challenge? If I can help you in any way, make sure you let me know. My name is Gene Hammett. You can check out more details at genehammett.com. You can keep listening to this podcast. You can read our books. But what I really want to remind you is you've got to decide that status quo is not enough. You've got to continue to move to that next level as a leader. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.